The day of the bonding ritual dawned quietly over Helios Station. Outside, the stars glimmered as if aware of the momentous event about to occur. Inside, Ethan and Kalira prepared themselves in the sacred chamber, the same space where they had trained and survived sabotage. Ethan felt a mixture of nerves and anticipation. For weeks he had learned to trust Kalira, to match her rhythm and to face challenges together. Now it was time to take the final step. Kalira stood across from him, her silver-blue skin glowing softly under the chamber's light. Her ridges pulsed with gentle warmth. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice calm but carrying a weight of expectation. Ethan nodded, swallowing hard. "Ready as I'll ever be." The ritual begins. Kalira extended her hands, palms glowing faintly with a soft inner light. She instructed Ethan to do the same. As soon as their hands met, a warmth spread through his body, unlike anything he had ever felt. "Focus on my presence," Kalira murmured. "Do not resist. Let your mind flow with mine." Ethan closed his eyes and concentrated, letting the hum of the station fade. Slowly, he felt a strange ripple, like the brush of water, across his thoughts. He realized it was Kalira's mind reaching toward him. Not words, not images, but a pure sensation of awareness. At first it was subtle. A flicker of emotion, a hint of thought. Then it deepened. He could sense her calmness, her curiosity, her pride in him. Simultaneously, Kalira began to feel his own thoughts, his nervousness, his humor, and his stubborn determination. For a moment, the connection wavered, and doubt crept in. Am I enough for her? Can I really do this? Kalira's voice, gentle and steady, reached him. You are more than enough, Ethan. Trust yourself. The link forms. The chamber seemed to fade around them, leaving only the two of them in a luminous space of light and energy. Colors swirled like the auroras of distant planets, and Ethan felt as if he were simultaneously himself and part of Kalira. Feel my heartbeat, she instructed. Let it match yours. He concentrated, syncing his rhythm with hers. Slowly, his own pulse seemed to harmonize with hers. Their emotions, once separate, began to merge into a shared current. Joy, curiosity, determination, and a subtle layer of fear, all blending and balancing together. Ethan realized he could anticipate her thoughts, not in a controlling way, but as if he were walking alongside them. He knew her instinctive reactions, her desires, her small silent worries, and she could sense his too. His desire to protect, to solve problems, to make her feel safe. This is incredible, he whispered. Kalira's ridges glowed brightly. It is the strength of the bond, it is trust made tangible, challenges within the bond as. The connection deepened, challenges emerged within their shared mind. Doubts from both of them surfaced like shadows. Ethan glimpsed Kalira's fear of rejection and inadequacy, and Kalira saw Ethan's occasional self-doubt and his fear of failure. They faced these shadows together. Ethan reached for her thoughts, wrapping them in understanding and encouragement. You're not alone, he murmured mentally. I'm here. We can do this together. Kalira returned the gesture, her awareness brushing against his insecurities. You are stronger than you believe, Ethan. Your courage is your gift. Every doubt they conquered strengthened the link. Every shared thought, every reassurance bound them closer. They were no longer just human and Illyri. They were a single unit in purpose and mind, connected across species, across space, across fear. The physical harmony, as the emotional and mental link solidified, their bodies responded as well. Their breathing fell perfectly in rhythm, their movements almost instinctively synchronized. Kalira guided Ethan through a series of flowing motions, gentle gestures that required balance, strength, and coordination. Ethan stumbled at first, but Kalira's presence steadied him. They moved as one, two beings learning to act as a single entity. Even when the motions became complex, he adapted. improvising with human ingenuity where necessary. "You adapt quickly," Kalira whispered. Pride and wonder mingled in her thoughts. He smiled, his confidence growing. "I guess humans have to improvise, it's kind of our thing." Her amusement pulsed in their shared awareness, and the light around them brightened. The bond solidifies hours passed, though time felt irrelevant. The chamber glowed with energy, the colors shifting and intensifying. Ethan could feel the full spectrum of Kalira's presence, her curiosity, her intellect, her loyalty, her warmth. And Kalira could feel the same in him, his humor, his determination, his compassion. Finally, the light around them pulsed and steadied. The chamber's symbols glimmered and then dimmed. Their minds were fully connected, seamlessly. The overseers, watching through the chamber's monitoring systems, nodded in approval. Kalira's ridges glowed warmly, brighter than ever. "It is done," she whispered. Ethan opened his eyes and met hers. He could feel her completely, not just her body but her thoughts and emotions as if they were his own. And she could feel him, every beat of his heart, every flash of his mind. A human moment, Ethan laughed softly, still catching his breath. "Wow, that was something else." Kalira's lips curved in a faint smile. "Yes, you handled it well." "Handled it?" he said with a grin. "I felt like we were flying through a storm, fighting fire, climbing cliffs, and solving riddles all at once." Kalira's ridges pulsed gently, amusement and affection mingling in their shared awareness. "And yet, you persevered. That is why you are human. That is why you are extraordinary." Ethan felt a warmth spread through him, not just physical but deeper. This was more than survival or courage. It was connection, understanding, trust that transcended words, the symbol of unity news, of the successful bonding spread across Helios Station. Where doubt had once existed, now there was admiration and respect. Humans and Ellery, once cautious of each other, now looked at the bonded pair with curiosity, hope, and a sense of possibility. The overseers convened, acknowledging the union as a powerful symbol of interspecies cooperation. For many, the bond demonstrated that understanding and trust could overcome differences that had seemed insurmountable. Ethan walked through the station with Kalira at his side. He could feel her awareness brushing against his, subtle reminders of shared thoughts and feelings. People noticed, but instead of fear, they saw harmony and confidence, reflections on humanity. That night, standing on the observation deck, Ethan gazed at the endless stars. The bond was still new, but it already shaped how he saw the universe. Humans were fragile compared to some alien species. They were short-lived, emotionally chaotic, and physically limited. But humans could adapt, improvise, and connect with others in ways few species could. Kalira's presence pulsed softly against his mind, and he smiled. "That's what she sees in me. In us. That's what humans have always had. The courage to connect, even when the universe says it's impossible." New beginning Kalira placed her hand over his, a gesture both physical and telepathic. "Ethan," she whispered, "together we are stronger than either of us alone. Our bond is more than survival. It is trust, understanding, and hope." Ethan nodded, feeling the truth of it in every fiber of his being. "Together," he echoed. The BA stars outside seemed to shine brighter, as if recognizing the new alliance. For the first time, Ethan felt not just a human, but a partner in a vast, interconnected universe. Their bond, born of courage, trust, and mutual respect, had become more than personal. It was a symbol of what humanity could offer, the ability to connect, to adapt, and to endure. In the quiet of Helios Station, a human and an Aeleri stood together, minds and hearts aligned, ready to face the stars as one. And for Ethan, that was more than enough. The trial chamber was silent when Ethan and Kalira emerged from the simulation. The shimmering glow of the Aeleri pillars dimmed, leaving only the watchful eyes of those gathered, Ethan's heart was still racing from everything he had seen and felt. The beasts, the illusions, Kalira's vulnerability. He wanted to collapse into a chair and breathe, but the expressions around him kept him tense. Some faces were curious. Others were grim. The overseer's voice finally broke the silence. The human and the Aeleri have proven compatible. The trial acknowledges their bond. Kalira's ridges glowed softly with relief, but around the room, murmurs rose. The division that evening, the outpost buzzed with whispers louder than ever before. In the mess hall, groups formed quickly. Some spoke of Ethan with admiration. A human passed the trial, that's incredible. Maybe this means we can understand each other better, but others were less kind. This is dangerous. What if the bond weakens her? Humans aren't meant to be part of Aeleri traditions. It could end badly. Ethan tried to keep his head down, but he could feel the tension like static in the air. Even some of the human crew weren't sure how to feel. Later, Marcus caught him in the corridor. Ethan, you know people are nervous, right? They're saying this whole thing could upset the balance on the station. Politics, alliances, everything. Ethan sighed. I didn't ask for this, Marcus. Kalira chose me. I'm just trying not to mess it up. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. Yeah, well, now it's bigger than you. Be careful. Kalira's calm Kalira, as always, seemed steady despite the storm around them. They speak because they fear, she told Ethan one evening as they walked through the observation deck. Stars glittered outside the wide glass, endless and silent. Change always brings fear, but it also brings growth. Ethan leaned against the railing, staring at the stars. Easy for you to say. You're not the one getting side-eyes in the mess hall every time you grab a sandwich. Kalira's ridges pulsed faintly, amusement glimmering in her eyes. You exaggerate, but I see your point. Doesn't it bother you? He asked. That some of your own people think this is wrong? She turned to him, her gaze steady. I chose you knowing there would be opposition. Their doubt does not change my choice. Her certainty made something inside him steady too. He nodded. Then I guess I'll just have to keep proving them wrong. Preparation for the bond a week later, Kalira invited Ethan to a quiet chamber lit with soft silver lamps. Symbols etched into the walls shimmered faintly. This is where we prepare for the bonding ritual, she explained. It is not the final step, but it will align our energies more deeply. Ethan looked around nervously. And this is safe, right? Because every time you say ritual, I start thinking about fire and chanting. Kalira gave him a patient look. It is safe unless someone interferes. He frowned. Why would someone interfere? But her silence was answer enough. The sabotage as they began the ritual. Ethan sat cross-legged opposite Kalira. The lamps pulsed with gentle light, and he tried to steady his breathing. Kalira's voice guided him, soft and melodic. Breathe, with me. Focus. Let the noise of the world fall away. For a moment it was peaceful. Ethan felt the now familiar ripple of Kalira's presence brushing against his mind. Calm, strong, constant. Then the lights flickered. Kalira's ridges flashed, sharply. Something is wrong. The floor trembled and suddenly the chamber filled with smoke. The lamps flared, sparking dangerously. A loud crack echoed through the walls. Ethan coughed, scrambling to his feet. What the? Kalira's eyes narrowed. Sabotage. Someone tampered with the energy conduits. The smoke grew thicker, and Ethan realized the oxygen scrubbers had been disabled. If they didn't fix it fast, the chamber would suffocate them. Ethan's quick-thinking Kalira moved to the door, but it refused to open. Locked. Sealed from the outside. Ethan's engineer instincts kicked in. He scanned the chamber, spotting the glowing panels near the floor. The conduits, they're overheating. If we don't vent the energy, the whole chamber could blow. Kalira touched the panels but pulled her hand back with a hiss. Too hot. Ethan ripped off his jacket, wrapping it around his hand. Then I'll do it. Kalira started to protest, but he cut her off. I'm the engineer here, trust me. He knelt by the panel, prying it open. Sparks flew and the heat seared his skin through the fabric. He gritted his teeth, forcing his hands to keep moving. Behind him, Kalira's voice was calm but urgent. "You are losing oxygen, hurry." "I know," he gasped. "Just a few more seconds." Finally, he rerouted the conduits manually, venting the excess energy. The light stabilized, the smoke cleared, and fresh oxygen rushed back into the chamber. Ethan collapsed to the floor, coughing hard, his hands red from burns. Kalira knelt beside him, her eyes glowing with concern. "Ethan." He managed a weak grin. "Told you, engineer." The confrontation word of the sabotage spread quickly. Investigations revealed it wasn't an accident. Someone had deliberately tampered with the conduits to disrupt the ritual. The overseers gathered in the council chamber, where both humans and aliens sat in tense silence. "This is proof," one Aelari elder declared. "The bond is dangerous. Already it has brought conflict to our station." Others argued back. "No, it proves the opposite. The humans saved her. He acted with courage and skill. That is compatibility." Ethan stood, at Kalira's side, feeling the weight of every gaze. He wanted to shrink under the pressure, but Kalira's calm presence steadied him. Finally, the overseer turned to him directly. "Human Ethan, why risk yourself for this? You could have left. You could have saved yourself." Ethan straightened, his voice firm despite the ache in his hands. "Because she trusted me, and because she matters. If I walked away when things got hard, I wouldn't deserve the bond or her." The chamber fell silent. Kalira's ridges glowed with quiet warmth. "This is why I chose him." A growing symbol in the days that followed, whispers shifted. Where, before there had been doubt, now there was respect. Some still feared the bond, but many began to see it as something new, something powerful. Ethan noticed the change. Crew members nodded at him in the halls. Aelari scientists approached him with cautious questions, curious about his perspective. For the first time, he felt less like an outsider and more like someone who belonged. One evening, as he and Kalira stood on the observation deck watching the stars drift by, he let out a long breath. "I never thought I'd be this, some kind of symbol." Kalira tilted her head. "Do you regret it?" He shook his head slowly. "No. Scares me, yeah, but no regrets." She studied him for a moment, then said softly, "Then soon, we will complete the bond. And whatever storms come, we will face them together." Ethan met her gaze, steady now. Together. The whispering on Helios Station had reached a peak. Some crew members watched Ethan with open curiosity, while others avoided his gaze. To many, the idea of a human becoming a bonded partner to an Aelari was unthinkable. Ethan tried to shrug off the attention, but the weight pressed on him more each day, and it became heavier when Kalira told him about the next step. "You must face the trial of compatibility," she explained one evening, her voice calm but firm. "It is required, before a bond can form." Ethan frowned. "A trial? What, like an exam?" "In a sense," Kalira said. "It is not written questions. It is a simulation created by our ancestors. It tests trust, instinct, and unity. If we succeed, we will be recognized as compatible. If we fail..." Her words trailed off, but the meaning was clear. Failure would not just mean embarrassment, it could mean danger for both of them. The trial chamber. The trial was held in a section of the station rarely used, a circular chamber filled with old Aelari technology. The walls shimmered with faint silver patterns, and in the center stood two tall pillars, glowing faintly with light. Several representatives of Kalira's people were present, along with a few human officers who had been invited as witnesses. Their gazes were sharp, weighing Ethan as though measuring his worth. Kalira stood beside him, calm and steady. Ethan tried to copy her composure, but his palms were sweaty. "This is it, huh?" he muttered. "Yes," Kalira said softly. She glanced at him, her ridges glowing faintly. "Do not fear. Trust me." He nodded, swallowing hard. "Right. Trust you. Got it." The Illyri overseer activated the pillars, and suddenly the room dissolved around them. The simulation begins. Ethan blinked as the sterile chamber melted into a vast forest. Trees towered high above, their silver leaves shimmering in alien sunlight. The air was fresh and cool, and he could hear the distant calls of unknown creatures. "Whoa," he breathed. "This is incredible." "It is not real," Kalira reminded him. "But it can harm us if we are not careful. The mind does not always know the difference." Ethan nodded nervously. "Great. A dangerous dream. Just my kind of thing." Kalira scanned the forest, her movements graceful and precise. "The trial will test us. It may take many forms. Be ready." As if on cue, a distant growl echoed through the trees. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. The first challenge, a massive beast emerged from the shadows, its body covered in dark scales, its eyes glowing red. It looked like some mix between a lion and a reptile, with claws long enough to shred steel. Ethan froze. "Okay, nope. That's too big. Way too big." Kalira stepped forward, her stance calm. Together, the creature charged. Instinct screamed at Ethan to run, but Kalira's steady presence held him in place. He grabbed a fallen branch, clumsy compared to the monster's size, but it was all he had. Kalira moved gracefully, distracting the beast with swift motions. Ethan, thinking quickly, jammed his branch into a gap between the creature's scales. It roared, thrashing wildly. "Now!" Kalira shouted. Ethan shoved with all his strength while Kalira struck with precise blows. The creature stumbled, then dissolved into silver light, vanishing into nothing. Ethan collapsed to the ground, panting. "That was insane. Please tell me it doesn't get worse than that." Kalira extended her hand, helping him up. "It will. Of course it will," Ethan muttered. The puzzle of trust, the forest shifted. Trees faded, and suddenly they stood before a chasm. A narrow bridge stretched across, but it looked unstable, swaying dangerously in the wind. On the far side glowed a silver orb, pulsing with light. Kalira spoke calmly. "One of us must cross while the other guides. Alone, neither will succeed." Ethan stared at the bridge. "You've got to be kidding me. That thing looks like it'll snap if I breathe on it." Kalira's eyes met his. "Do you trust me?" He hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, I trust you. Then you will cross," she said firmly. Ethan swallowed hard, stepping onto the bridge. It swayed dangerously, boards creaking under his weight. His stomach twisted as he glanced down into the endless void below. Kalira's voice rang out behind him, calm and steady. "Left foot slow. Hold the rope. Do not look down." He followed her instructions step by step. Several times the boards cracked beneath him, but Kalira's guidance kept him moving. Finally, he reached the orb and grabbed it. The chasm vanished. Instantly, and they stood together again. Ethan handed her the orb, still shaking. "I hope you realize I'm never walking across a bridge again." Kalira's ridges glowed with faint amusement. Noted. The illusion of fear. The simulation shifted again. This time, Ethan found himself standing in the engineering bay of Helios Station. It looked exactly as it did in reality, except it was burning. Flames spread across the walls, smoke filled the air, and alarms blared. "Kalira," he shouted, coughing, but she wasn't there. Instead, a voice whispered inside his head, "You cannot save her. You are too weak." Ethan gritted his teeth. No, not falling for this. He pushed through the smoke, searching desperately. Finally, he found her, trapped beneath debris, her ridges dim, her eyes closing. "Ethan," she whispered weakly. "Leave me." He shook his head furiously. Not a chance. Using all his strength, he heaved the debris aside and pulled her into his arms. The fire roared higher, but he didn't stop. He carried her through the flames until everything dissolved into silver light. Suddenly, the fire was gone. Kalira stood before him, unharmed, her eyes wide. "You did not hesitate," she said softly. Ethan gave a shaky laugh. Yeah, well, leaving you behind wasn't an option. Her ridges glowed warmly. Then the trial has already learned much about you. A glimpse of vulnerability. After several more challenges, riddles, battles, illusions, the simulation finally shifted into a calm meadow. The sky was soft and golden, the grass swaying gently in the breeze. Kalyra sat down, motioning for Ethan to do the same. This is the final stage. It reveals truth. Ethan frowned. Truth? Yes. Our hidden fears, our doubts, they will surface here. We must face them together. At first, nothing happened. Then, before Ethan's eyes, his surroundings shifted again. He saw himself, alone, sitting in the engineering bay, forgotten, invisible. His co-workers passed by without noticing him, his efforts ignored. The sight hit him hard. That's me, he realized, afraid of being no one, afraid of not mattering. He glanced at Kalyra, and to his surprise, her illusion appeared too. She stood surrounded by her own people, but their faces were cold, distant. She reached out to them, but they turned away. Her voice shook faintly. My fear is rejection, that even if I give all of myself, it will not be enough. Ethan's heart ached at the honesty in her voice. He reached out, placing his hand on hers. Kalyra, I see you. You are more than enough. Her eyes shimmered with emotion. And you, Ethan, you are not invisible, not to me. The illusions dissolved, leaving only the meadow and the warmth of their joined hands. The trial's end. The meadow faded, and they were back in the trial chamber. The overseers watched silently, their expressions unreadable. The overseer finally spoke. The trial is complete. The human and the Aeoliri have shown compatibility. Kalyra turned to Ethan, her eyes bright with relief. We succeeded. Ethan let out a long breath, smiling weakly. Barely. But hey, I'll take it. As the witnesses murmured among themselves, Ethan realized something had shifted. He and Kalyra weren't just partners in training anymore. They had faced fears, fought side by side, and trusted each other with their lives. The next morning on Helios Station, Ethan woke with a restless mind. Sleep had not come easily. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Kalyra's calm, serious expression and heard her words. I chose you. It was one thing to be respected by an alien scientist. It was another to be chosen as her partner in something that could bind them forever. Ethan wasn't even sure if he wanted a bond that strong with anyone, let alone someone from another species. Still, curiosity gnawed at him. He knew Kalyra wasn't exaggerating. If her cycle really was dangerous without a partner, then her life was on the line, and she had placed her trust in him. The quiet mess hall. Ethan found Kalyra in the mess hall later that morning. The place was mostly empty, save for a few tired engineers eating breakfast. She sat alone by the wide observation window, sipping from a tall silver cup filled with her people's nutrient drink. He hesitated before approaching, but Kalyra noticed him immediately. Her eyes shimmered faintly as though reflecting the stars beyond the glass. Ethan, she said softly. You came. He slid into the seat across from her, fiddling with the edge of his tray. Yeah. Couldn't exactly ignore what you dropped on me last night. Her ridges pulsed faintly with light. I know it was sudden. Your kind prefers gradual conversations. My people value directness. Ethan gave a small laugh. Yeah, you could say that. So, what exactly happens now? The first lesson. Kalyra set her cup down carefully. If you are truly willing to consider this bond, then we must begin synchronization. It is how we prepare our minds and bodies for the link. Synchronization? Ethan repeated. Like meditation? In a way, she said. We must learn to match breathing, heart rhythm, and emotional currents. Only then can the bond form without pain. Ethan blinked. Without pain? That's supposed to reassure me? Kalira tilted her head, confused. You humans often fear pain more than necessary. It is only temporary discomfort. But harmony can make it easier. Right, Ethan muttered, pushing his food around his tray. And you think I can actually do this? Her eyes met his steadily. I do not choose wrongly. Something in her tone, so steady, so certain, made him stop arguing. The training chamber. Later that day, Kalira led Ethan into one of the empty training chambers. The room was circular, with soft lights and padded floors. Usually, it was used for combat drills, but today it was quiet and empty. Kalira gestured for Ethan to sit. He lowered himself onto the floor, feeling a little ridiculous. Close your eyes, she instructed. He obeyed reluctantly. Now breathe, she said. In, out, slowly. Feel the rhythm of your body. Do not force it. Ethan inhaled, exhaled, trying to calm the racing of his heart. Good, Kalira murmured. Now listen. Can you hear me breathe? At first, all he heard was the hum of the station's systems, but then he noticed the faint, steady sound of her inhalations. He adjusted his pace to match hers. Slowly, their breathing fell into rhythm. Better, she said. This is the first step. Our bodies must learn each other's patterns. Ethan cracked one eye open. So this is what bonding looks like? Sitting around and breathing together? Kalira's lips curved faintly. It begins small, but soon you will feel my emotions as if they are your own. The idea sent a shiver down Ethan's spine. He wasn't sure if he was ready for that, the clash of perspectives. They repeated the exercise for several days. Sometimes Kalira asked him to mirror her movements, slow hand gestures, turns of the head, even standing stances that reminded him of ancient Earth martial arts. Other times she simply sat with him in silence, urging him to feel the flow of energy in the room. Ethan struggled at first. His human mind was restless, full of wandering thoughts and half-formed worries. Kalira, in contrast, was focused, steady, as a stone in a river. Your mind leaps like a spark, she said during one session. It makes harmony difficult. Ethan sighed. That's just how humans are. We multitask. We think about food while we're fixing engines, while we're also worrying about what someone said 3 days ago. Kalira considered this thoughtfully. It is inefficient, yet it has value. Sparks can start fire. Fire creates life. Ethan chuckled. I never thought of my scatterbrain as a survival trait. Her eyes glimmered. It is. Despite the frustration, Ethan found himself enjoying their sessions. The more time he spent with Kalira, the more he noticed details he hadn't before. The way her ridges glowed brighter when she was amused, the softness in her voice when she encouraged him, the patience she carried even when he stumbled. Whispers. On the station, of course, word spread quickly through Helios Station. Humans were a small community there, and gossip traveled faster than any communication relay. By the end of the week, Ethan could feel the stares. Crew members paused in their conversations when he walked into a room. Some whispered openly, "Did you hear? The alien scientist picked him." Out of everyone, she chose Ethan. What does that even mean? Sounds risky. Human and Illyri bonds? That can't end well. Even some of the other alien species on board seemed curious, if not cautious. The insectoid Thyr watched Ethan with clicking mandibles, while the reptilian Drek simply gave him long, unreadable stares. At first, Ethan tried to ignore it, but the tension grew. Finally, one evening in the mess hall, his friend Marcus sat across from him with a frown. Ethan, what's going on with you and Kalira? People are saying crazy things. Ethan rubbed his forehead. Yeah, well, the crazy things are true. She wants me to be her partner. Marcus nearly choked on his drink. Partner? Not like that. Ethan interrupted quickly. It's part of her species' cycle. It's life or death serious, and she picked me. Marcus leaned back, shaking his head. Man, I don't know whether to be impressed or terrified. Try both, Ethan muttered. Doubt and determination. That night, Ethan returned to his quarters, his mind heavy with doubt. What if he failed Kalyra? What if the bond broke him? What if he wasn't enough? He stared at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the station. But then he remembered her words. "You are more than you believe." No one had ever said that to him with such certainty. The next day, he entered the training chamber with renewed focus. Kalyra noticed immediately. "You are calmer today," she said. "Maybe I'm finally starting to believe you," he admitted. Her ridges pulsed warmly. "Good. Belief makes strength." A glimpse of connection. During one particularly intense session, Kalyra asked him to sit opposite her, their knees almost touching. "Close your eyes," she said softly. He obeyed. "Now do not only breathe with me. Feel. Imagine reaching for my presence. Do not force it, let it happen." Ethan focused, trying to quiet his restless thoughts. For a moment there was nothing. Then faintly, he sensed something, like a ripple in still water. Not words, not images, but a feeling. Calm. Steady. His eyes flew open. "I felt you." Just for a second. Kalyra's eyes shone with quiet satisfaction. "Yes, that is the beginning. Soon, it will be clearer." Ethan's heart raced, not from fear this time, but from awe. For the first time, he realized this wasn't just ritual or tradition. It was real. The bond between them. Over the next days, their progress grew. The ripples of Kalyra's emotions became clearer to Ethan. Calm when she focused, amusement when he cracked a joke, even faint traces of sadness she never showed outwardly. In return, she told him she could sense flashes of his energy too. His restless curiosity, his stubbornness, his hidden loneliness. "You hide it well," she said one evening, "but you carry silence inside you. A silence that longs for connection." Ethan looked away, embarrassed. "Maybe. Out here it's easy to feel like just another cog in the machine. You start wondering if anyone really sees you." "I see you," Kalyra said simply. The words struck deeper than Ethan expected. An uneasy future. Still, not everyone was pleased with their progress. Whispers turned into murmurs, murmurs into debates. Some argued it was dangerous for a human and an Aeleri to attempt a permanent bond. Others claimed it could be the start of something historic. Ethan felt the pressure mounting. But when he looked at Kalyra, calm and steady in her certainty, he felt a spark of courage. He didn't know what the future held. He didn't know if he was truly ready. But for the first time in his life, he wanted to try, not just for her, but for himself. The frontier outpost of Helios Station was quiet most nights. The stars hung outside the reinforced glass like diamonds scattered across endless black. Humans had only lived among the stars for 2 generations, and still, every window looking into space gave Ethan the same feeling, awe mixed with loneliness. Ethan wasn't a soldier nor a great explorer. He was an engineer. His days were filled with fixing broken power couplings, checking oxygen systems, and reminding others not to overload the fusion cores. Work that wasn't glamorous, but necessary. Without people like him, stations like Helios would fall dark in weeks. Yet for all his practical duties, he had never expected his life to change because of a single conversation with an alien colleague. Kalyra was not like the humans he worked with. She belonged to the Aeleri, a tall and graceful species with smooth silver-blue skin and deep reflective eyes that shimmered like water under moonlight. Unlike humans, they had ridges along their forearms that pulsed faintly when they were emotional. Ethan had once joked they were like mood rings. She hadn't understood the joke, but she had smiled politely. Kalyra had been on Helios for 3 years, researching the energy patterns of nearby pulsars. Her presence made the station feel both smaller and larger at the same time. Smaller, because her calm presence often filled a room, and larger, because she carried with her the quiet wisdom of a people far older than humankind. Ethan respected her, but he never imagined she thought of him as anything more than a fellow worker. The evening encounter, it was late, and most of the crew had gone to their quarters. Ethan sat in the engineering bay, wiping grease from his hands after another long shift. The hum of machines was his background music. That was when the door slid open with a hiss, and Kalira stepped in. She was dressed in the flowing white robes, her kind preferred during off-duty hours. "Ethan," she said, her voice calm and melodic, "I have been considering something important. I wish to speak to you privately." He blinked, dropping the rag on the table. Sure. Is something wrong with the energy grid?" "No," she said simply, tilting her head. "It is about me. About us." Ethan's brows furrowed. "Us?" He stood, suddenly aware that he was still in his grease-stained uniform. "All right. What's going on?" Kalira stepped closer, her silver blue eyes locking with his. For the first time, Ethan noticed the faint glow in her arm ridges pulsing faster, almost nervously. "It is the season," she said quietly. "My people call it the cycle of renewal. You may call it mating season." Ethan choked on his own breath. Mating season?" "Yes," she replied, as if it were the most natural subject in the universe. "And I require a partner. I have chosen you." The shock for several long seconds, Ethan just stared at her. His brain scrambled for words that refused to form. Finally, he managed, "Wait, hold on. You chose me? Out of everyone? Why?" Kalira's expression remained calm, though the faint shimmer in her eyes betrayed amusement. "You are resilient, adaptable. You solve problems with creativity rather than instinct. My people respect such traits. You also carry warmth. I believe you are compatible." Ethan rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly sweating despite the cool air of the bay. "Kalira, you're amazing and all, but I'm human. You? Wouldn't one of your own people make more sense?" She shook her head slowly. "Not this time. Our bonds are more than biological. They are also emotional. My people have strict traditions, but I have studied humans long enough to see that your kind carries strength beyond measure, in the way you connect with others. That is what I need." Ethan laughed nervously. "So you just walk in here and ask me to be your partner? Like it's a casual favor?" "I did not ask," she corrected softly. "I chose." That word lingered in the air, heavy with meaning. The weight of choice. Ethan sat down heavily in his chair, running a hand through his messy hair. "Kalira, I don't even know what to say. I mean, I'm just a guy from Earth who fixes power, cores. You're a brilliant scientist from a species that's been traveling the stars for centuries. We're not even the same species," she finished for him. "It is true, but compatibility is not always found in sameness. Sometimes, difference makes a stronger bond." Her voice was calm, but there was something in it, a quiet urgency. Ethan realized this wasn't just casual talk. To her, this was deeply important. "What happens if you don't find a partner?" he asked carefully. Kalira looked away, her eyes reflecting the glow of the machines. "The cycle demands unity. Without it, my strength will diminish. My focus will fade. It is dangerous to endure alone." Ethan frowned. "Dangerous? Like fatal?" She met his gaze again. "Eventually, yes." The weight of her words sank into him like cold stone. He had thought this was some odd cultural ritual, but no, it was life or death. Confusion and curiosity, Ethan leaned forward. "You really think I can do this? That I can be your partner in whatever this bond requires?" Kalira stepped closer until she was only a few feet away. "I do not think. I know." Her certainty unsettled him. He wanted to laugh it off, but part of him couldn't ignore the sincerity in her eyes. Another part, the human part that always sought connection in the vast loneliness of space, felt a strange spark of curiosity. "What would it even involve?" he asked. Kalira's ridges glowed softly like a blush. "It is not only physical. The bond is also mental, emotional. We share thoughts, instincts, and strength. It is permanent. Once joined, we are never truly apart. Ethan swallowed hard. Permanent. That word echoed louder than the machines humming around them. A human's doubt. He stood and began pacing, rubbing his temples. This is insane. I mean, Kalira, I like working with you. I respect you, but I'm not some hero out of a story. I'm just an engineer. She followed his movement with her calm gaze. You are more than you believe. Humans often underestimate themselves. It is part of your charm. Ethan stopped and looked at her, half exasperated, half fascinated. Charm? You think humans are charming? She tilted her head slightly, considering. Yes. You laugh when logic says there is no reason. You keep trying when the odds say you should fail. That is charm. That is strength. Ethan had no answer. An unsettling silence. The room fell quiet. The hum of the generators filled the silence between them. Kalira stood steady, waiting, her eyes never leaving him. Finally, Ethan sighed and sank back into his chair. This is too much for one night. I need time to think. Kalira inclined her head in understanding. I will give you time, but remember, Ethan, the cycle cannot be delayed. My choice remains. With that, she turned gracefully and left the room, leaving Ethan alone with the weight of her words. The turning point, Ethan sat in silence long after she was gone. His hands trembled slightly, though he wasn't sure why. Part of him wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it all. An alien just asked me, told me, that I'm going to be her partner for mating season. It sounded like a bad punchline. Yet, another part of him, quieter but stronger, felt the truth of it. Kalira wasn't joking. To her, this was serious. To her, he was serious. And as strange as it was, the thought of letting her down felt heavier than the stars pressing on the windows outside.